Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN, powered by the Midwest Coalition of Labor. My name is Ken Edwards with the MCL. Sitting to my left is Ed Maher with the International Union of Operating Engineers.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, how's it going, Ed?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm excellent. How was your fourth?
Fourth was great. The weather wasn't awesome, but you got a nice sunburn. My Irish skin doesn't take the sun very well, so I'm kind of still purple from a few days ago.
You still have all your fingers?
Yeah.
All right,
I got into a little light fireworks play, which I sort of the last few years it's been like, fireworks, no big deal.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, my neighbor brought out some fireworks, and I was like a kid in a candy store. I was just like, it never gets old. It was so much fun.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Sparklers?
Oh, I don't play with the hard stuff. I was doing the snakes and those little snap things.
The snap things.
Oh, man, that's pretty tough stuff.
So we number one, we have a guest on later,
Yep.
a doctor from Premise Health, and we're going to talk about an interesting story that's very personal to me. So stay tuned for that. But we have been talking about kind of really drill down health issues and really specific things, and you had mentioned, and I thought it was a good idea, that maybe we take a quick step back, especially for our new listeners, and talk about like why we started this show, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important because we do hear from folks every week who say that they just found the show. So I think it is important to talk a little bit about what unions are and why they're important. Why America needs them, why workers should.
I thought that we don't need unions anymore because all laws have been passed to protect workers.
Well, I mean, if we talk a lot about the various federal laws and state laws on the show, that laws are temporary. They can be.
Well, it certainly seems. Just ask Iowa. That law just went into effect for
child labor. Yeah.
So congratulations,
well,
Iowa.
Laws can be struck down by courts. They can be, new laws can be passed that negate them by legislatures. But the basic deal with unions is that for workers who join unions, a union will raise your wages.
Yes.
It will dictate rules and terms of employment that basically just set a limit for what can take place, what employers can do, what employers can't do, protect safety, give you benefits, ranging from healthcare to pension benefits to things like that. And for, over a century in the United States, certainly, unions have proven to be a vehicle into a better life for workers of all skill levels.
And so, of course, then you would think that, given what you just said, that unions would be very popular. And oh, by the way, today they are very, very popular because people are starting to realize that, that the employer, surprise, surprise, doesn't have the best interest of the worker in mind.
For sure.
And the employers want to squeeze money.
People have seen that over long periods of time, but recently, and especially during the pandemic when it was, you can't take a day off. Right. I don't care if you're sick. I don't care if you're worried about getting sick. You've got to come to work and, your health, just roll the dice with it. People finally stood up during the pandemic. A lot of workers did and just said, I'm not doing this for nothing anymore.
Right.
There are a lot of folks who are staying home and they're not coming back to the workforce, especially in industries like retail and hospitality. So we all went to restaurants or Starbucks or wherever where the drive-thru was closed because they couldn't get anybody to work, or they had signs out in front that said, a server would be making $18 an hour to start, and there was, tuition reimbursement and all these things that we hadn't seen because it was just so hard to find people to come to work. And so, I think a lot of folks started to realize they had more of a voice, but data is showing that trend is starting to slow down. People are no longer playing musical chairs with jobs. During the pandemic, a lot of folks were, leaving their job, finding a new job.
The Great Resignation, right?
Yeah, and I think the Great Resignation is coming to an end because the amount of people quitting their jobs is back to pre-pandemic levels.
Is that right?
And I think it's because, unemployment has come up a little bit, and the pendulum is starting to swing back in the way of the employer because we're not seeing these. There are people who are eager to work again, and they're not having such a hard time finding skilled people, and so some of those incentives have gone away. Some of we're going to let our workers get away with this because we're going to give them what they want because we need them. It's starting to go away, and that is why unions are important.
Well,
Because
now look, now more than ever, right?
Right.
If there was ever a time to do it, the time is now, and you're seeing this all over the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing a lot of strikes, you're seeing a lot of collective action, you're seeing a lot of union organizing, but let's just talk about. I just want to go back for a second, and I don't mean to Bob Ryder this, but
Ouch.
in the the 1930s, they passed the National Labor Relations Act, and the reason they passed it was not 100% altruistic. It was because there were a ton of strikes and work stoppages and problems. And they said in the actual language of the act, and I'm paraphrasing this, but employers have the upper hand, and we need to get employees on an even playing field. Therefore, we're going to pass this act that promotes collective bargaining, et cetera, et cetera. But they did this in the name of commerce, right? Of capitalism,
Yeah.
so making sure that commerce and capitalism, continued on its merry way. It happened like Industrial Revolution times. So the policy of the United States supposedly is to encourage collective bargaining. And you saw a giant upswing, from the 30s to the 70s of, tons of unions. And, it wasn't like a bad thing to join a union.
Right. I mean, as friend of the show and brilliant labor attorney Dale Pearson always said, it created labor peace.
That's
it was
right.
predictability within industries like shipping, and that was seen to be a good thing. So the policy of the nation is not just to allow unionism, but to encourage it.
Promote it.
Right. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So that's
And
what the federal laws.
as well they should. So
Yes.
they created the National Labor Relations Board. But of course, like anything else, like you said, things get chipped away.
Right.
And court cases, take away rights. And look what's happening today. I mean, we're screaming backwards with, child care and just lost abortion and, affirmative action in schools. And, we're literally just screaming backwards. And of course, corporations and capital figured out that, wait a second, if I can uneven the playing field again,
Yeah.
I can make more money.
For sure.
And it's literally boiled down to, of course, greed. And we talk about inflation. It's called greedflation now. There's no inflation. It's actually just corporations trying to squeeze out as much money as humanly possible. Everything is more expensive all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Why? That's not because there's less lettuce. It's because they're going to just charge you more for it.
Right. I mean, think about like gas prices. Something will happen, gas prices go up.
Right.
Whatever that inciting thing was goes away. Gas prices don't go right back down because somebody's like, well, we can hang on to this for a couple days, make a few extra bucks.
And then all of a sudden it becomes the norm. Where
Right.
gas used to be $2, now it's $4 or $5, and that's the norm. And that's what you pay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so moving on back to the topic of unions, if there was a time to do it, now is the time to do it. And for all the reasons that Ed just said, but you want to even up the playing field because your employer, I think as people have now seen, really honestly, for the most part, and there are good employers out there, there's no question about it. But, these big megacorps, they see you as a means to an end. And that end is corporate profit.
Right.
And you are a number. And you are replaceable. And now all of a sudden you're not only replaceable, you're replaceable by a robot, AI.
Absolutely.
So it's not like, the immigrants are coming for your jobs, Well, don't worry about that. We have robots coming for your jobs now.
For Amazon specifically, they're using more robots. They're using robots outside the factories to do, near area deliveries. And with the money that's being saved on workers, Bezos has a $500 million yacht, and he's building a rocket to go to outer space. I mean, between him, Richard Branson, and Elon Musk, the three of them they're in a space race among themselves, and people are just like, wow, look at these guys. It's like, yeah, does anyone think maybe they have a little too much money to play with right now?
So I want to tell you a statistic. I don't want to tell everybody a statistic, and that is income inequality, right? So as union density has declined, the disparity between the top getters and everybody else has grown, and it's grown exponentially.
Yeah.
And, people talk about, so-and-so's a millionaire. But let's talk about the real 1% for a second, the people that are actually running this country. I hate to say it, but it's almost a plutocracy, if you will, and you could look up that word. But I read this, what I thought was a really cool thing, and it says the difference between $1 million and $1 billion is 1 million seconds is 11 and a half days. 1 billion seconds is 31.6 1.7 years.
Yeah.
So
There's a big difference.
does somebody really need 1 billion seconds? You know what I mean? In other words, when very few are consolidating all this power and this wealth, and everybody else is struggling, there needs to be a sea change.
Right.
And look, unions are
There's got to be somebody
obviously
fighting in the other corner.
there has to be, because otherwise we're going to spiral to the bottom, and 6 people are going to own the world. And I forget what the statistics are, but it's like 1% owns 90% of the wealth in the country. And so we have to fight back. And one of the ways of fighting back, obviously, is joining together, collective. Right? It's they call the United States a union.
Yeah.
For a reason, right? It's the United States of America, right? It's all our states got together and we formed basically a union, and we said, okay, we'll take on the world, right? We do it together. There's no difference in, a job site or a factory or something where workers get together and even up that playing field. And kudos to everybody that's trying this right now. And shame on the companies that are fighting, spending more money fighting than it would be just to give people a living wage, right? I mean, I think I read that the median income in the United States is somewhere in the $30,000 range.
Not surprising.
Folks
don't have any money saved for retirement. It's things are backsliding.
Yeah, work till you die.
So I'll tell a brief story. A good friend of mine who works in the financial sector, and he's a good friend of mine, but never been really a huge fan of unions.
Yeah.
His wife was pregnant and off on maternity leave. And while she was off, she worked in a medical clinic. While she was off, she got transferred to a clinic that was closing in 3 months, so that when she got back, she would work for about a week and then she'd be out of a job.
Right.
So he calls me and he's like, this isn't fair. And I was like, well, no, it's definitely a violation of federal law. And so he went back and forth with his employer, and her employer, they were not willing to do anything. I hooked him up with a labor lawyer who helped write a letter, got it squared away. And he said to me, we got help from a lawyer. So that's the only reason that we were taken care of here. But what about people who get hassled at work and they don't have the ability to do this? Like they have to take it or leave,
right.
And that's not right. There should be something to protect them. And I was like, yeah, buddy, how about a union contract? And since that day, since he went through something where he saw how employers will just say, take it or leave it.
Right.
He's understood the importance of a union. And I think sometimes you have to go through it yourself, but you shouldn't have to. It should be simple to understand.
I think we have lost that, we got so bogged down in capitalism and, everything is fine, and got distracted by, social media and got divided by the rich telling the middle class to hate the poor, and divided about guns and race and gender, and it's just a nonstop barrage to keep our eyes off the target, and that is to have a nice life,
right?
A good, solid, live the American dream. And it's getting harder and harder to do that. And people are standing up and they're fighting right now. There's the, the hotel workers in California, 50,000 of them walked out on a 3-day strike.
Right.
You're watching the writers, right? White collar writers have been out for how many, 50 or 60 days right now? I mean, and they're not giving up, right?
Right.
I'm watching, stores like REI. Have you ever heard of this store?
Yeah.
It's like a fancy camping store.
Fancy camping store,
whatever. It was like $800 shorts,
right.
And
they're really nice shorts.
They're really progressive, and they're really, we're for the people, and
as long as
join
they
me
don't
on
want
the mountain. Well, they're join the union, and of course they're fighting tooth and nail, so it's showing their true colors.
So are they $900 shorts now? They got to jack up the price on those shorts.
You pay for their high-priced lawyers.
So we've got to take a quick break.
Yeah.
But again, that's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about the importance of this and to give workers some ideas, some resources, and just tell the stories that'll hopefully inspire people to be that positive.
Yeah, and I want
change.
to talk about it when we come back from break. I want to talk about some of the comments that we've been getting, on social media and emails and things like that. So let's take a quick break.
Yeah, we'll be back, and in a couple of segments, we'll have Dr. Bathala from Premise Health with us. So stick around for that. We'll be back with more Workers' Mike in a few minutes right here on 720 WGN.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ken. Sitting next to me is Ed, and I want to pivot a little bit. We talked about just briefly just now, the sort of the 30,000-foot view of why unions are important and why working class should stand up. Since this show started last year, I guess.
Yeah, last September.
And since obviously we're the number one show
in America,
we've gotten comments, and they're starting to become more regular.
Yeah, we get a lot of feedback.
And
we appreciate it all.
Yeah, we literally appreciate people calling and saying thank you and talking about, whatever. We've gotten a ton of really positive feedback, and people literally like using our services to like get their kids into the trades. And
right.
some really, really nice kind of heartwarming stuff. But of course, we also have the opposite, which are people that hate what we're doing.
I think I sometimes enjoy those comments even more.
Listen, I'm that person that responds to every single comment.
Yes, you
every
do.
single one. So we got one the other day. I think we were talking was it last week we were talking about people dying from heat.
In Texas after the governor
and by the way,
overruled.
I think just the other day it was the hottest day on record in Florida. And by the way, every single year has broken heat records.
Well, I think Wednesday was the hottest day in the history of the earth, and the second hottest day was Tuesday, and the third hottest was Monday.
You know
it's
what?
a rough week. I was saying about my sunburn and all.
I make fun of people from Minnesota, but I've changed my mind.
Yeah?
No, I don't make fun. No. So anyway, we were talking about it, and there was a TikTok put up by our great guys from Da Vinci Street Productions, and it was talking about, Governor Abbott banning water breaks, and sure enough, the guy died immediately. And I rattled off a statistic, and it was like, X number of people per year. And then somebody literally got on the thing and said, so you're really going to complain about 20 people a year dying? And I'm like, dying from not being able to drink water?
Dying of thirst at work.
Yeah, I'm going to complain about that.
20 people. I mean, so I think his point is you hear about all these people who die in car accidents or heart disease or whatever.
Yeah.
So those are big numbers. 20 is a small number.
So that means it's okay?
What if you knew all 20 of those people? Like,
Pick 20 of your family members to die every year.
Every year.
Yeah. And by the way, how many families, those 20 people that literally died of heat, related, which is avoidable.
Yeah.
Right? A car accident may not be avoidable sometimes, right? A train, if you're on a train and it derails, then it's your time to go.
Yeah.
But, you shouldn't die at work from not being able to drink water.
Thirst and heat exhaustion seems like a really, really bad way to go.
And it's not just obviously the person that died. You left behind a family.
Well, that's a
kids.
worker. That's somebody who's bringing home a paycheck.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And then the other one we got, Ed, was when we had a few weeks ago talking about, children working at McDonald's. That really, really irks people. People got on our social media like, "Well, what's the matter with that?" It was just a mom and bringing her kids to work, and she needed, blah 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 blah.
The kids are washing dishes, yeah.
But viciously defending McDonald's, and this worker lady that brought her kids to work, and why people shouldn't turn in child workers.
I think what we're getting at here is that a single mom shouldn't have to be left to bring her children with her to her job at McDonald's late at night.
Yeah.
There used to be a time where there was a single, a one worker household, things like that. Those times were pretty good. In many ways, those times are gone. And aside from folks companies hiring children to wash dishes, like legitimate children to work after school or instead of going to school, you also have workers that are stretched way too thin and have to make tough decisions about pulling their kids out of school or keeping their kids up late because they've got to come with them to work. And
this goes back to
if you're for that, don't listen. Just don't listen. This show is not for you.
Yeah, correct. But it goes back to what we were just talking about, and that is literally just corporate greed, where the average income has gone down and the wage disparity. If people had a living wage, they could afford maybe a babysitter or some childcare, or they wouldn't have to work 2 or 3 jobs. But when a billion, trillion, gazillion dollar corporation is paying people and complaining about it, by the way, $15 an hour. It's not a livable wage.
Yeah.
So this, remember the fight for 15?
Yeah.
It's just the most short-sighted thing I've ever heard of. It should be fight for 50. Period. 50 bucks an hour. That's what we should be getting. Fight for 50. I'm going to start that.
That sounds good.
Is that all right?
Sure.
All right. Well, you heard it here first.
Yep.
Yeah. In about 50 years, when we get to 50 bucks an hour, you'll remember that show back then.
Yeah. When people are making $50 an hour, gas is going to cost $50 a gallon.
Whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, we're going to take a quick break.
We're going to be back with Dr. Kavitha Bathala.
Yeah, talking about continuing to drill down and talk about the way we're delivering healthcare and trying to change this system, which I think is also important. So we will be right back on the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ken. Sitting next to me is Ed, and we are pleased, as we talked about earlier, to have with us today Dr. Kavitha Bathala, and she is the what are you, the medical director?
That's correct. I'm the medical director presently at the Carpenters Health Center, and prior to that, I was the medical director at MOE in Maryville.
Well, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's just talk briefly about who you are and some of your background. So let's start with this. How long have you been a doctor?
I've been a family physician for 24 years now.
Okay. And is that like general practice?
Yes. So that's general practice, primary care. So I'm board certified in family practice.
It's interesting, though. You don't see family practitioners that much anymore, right? It used to be that you go to your family doctor and they took care of it. They've known you since you were little and they take care of everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And now everything is so specialized, right?
For sure.
So
correct. Yes.
So you've been practicing for that
24 years.
24 years, and how long have you been with Premise?
Premise, it's coming on 3 years.
Okay. And you started at our facility. I say our
the Operators Health Center, right?
The one in Indiana?
In the Maryville location, correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how long were you there?
So about 2.5 years.
And then you just moved over to the Carpenters?
Yes.
So as the medical director,
now.
You're not only the doctor, but you're overseeing an entire staff of nurse practitioners, various different levels of clinicians and administrators. Is that right?
Correct. So we have our nurse practitioners, we have behavioral health, we have condition management, and then we have our nursing staff and our health center manager. So, and the health center manager takes the role of primarily handling the office administrative side of it, and then, and we take care of the medical side of it.
So you've got a whole medical staff that's available to carpenters at this location or operating engineers at your previous location. For anything that they might need, they come in, the services are free of charge to the members, and they have doctors, nurse practitioners, people to, draw blood, do tests, behavioral health. They have all this stuff just at their fingertips.
That's correct. And
remarkable.
Also physical therapy and chiropractic care in addition.
It really
that's a
is
lot
kind of
for
like
free.
Yeah, it's one-stop shopping. And so, I know we've touched on this, but I really do want to pound this home because I think what Premise is doing and some of the other companies that are in the space, and then, of course, the unions that are taking advantage of this is really changing the way healthcare is delivered, right, to our members' family. You were in, for lack of a better word, the private sector, if you will. You were in a different space before you came over to Premise because you've only been there for 3 years.
So you worked at previous to the Operators Health Center. You worked at University of Chicago in Tinley Park, the ambulatory center, right?
That's correct. So that is a community-based center. So the way patients were seen, it is fee-based. We saw we saw members from 2 years old to adults. I was involved in inpatient, outpatient, and primarily we were in an office setting, and everything else was referred out. So that would be our.
So in terms of service to the patients, fee based, and we've talked about this with some of your counterparts at Premise, different than the model that we use and that Premise uses and that the unions are starting to use. Is there's no more hand on the doorknob knowing that you have to see a certain amount of patients in order to generate a certain amount of fees.
Right, trying to get people healthy.
Yeah, would that be an accurate statement?
Exactly. So this is more value-based. So we have ample time to work with our patients and members. We're given 30-minute slots. So we're given time to actually talk to the patient, get to know the patient. There's a lot of different factors, family dynamics. So we can kind of dwell into kind of what the health aspects are, what barriers to health may be.
Yeah,
advocate.
I didn't know. But I don't mean to talk over you, but I didn't know there were 30-minute slots. Like that's actually a thing. So you get to spend 30 minutes with each patient.
It's a lot longer than my doctor spends with me.
I don't think I've seen a doctor in total for 30 minutes, other than the surgery I had.
Right.
In total over like the last 10 years.
Well, I mean, speaking of that surgery, Ken, Premise has a lot to do with the reason that you're sitting here today.
Yeah. So doctor, we're going to pivot here for a second, right?
Sure.
And I want to talk about my story, which I've never told on the air before, but I'm going to now. And I'll tell you at the same time. But you and I spoke about it earlier. But Premise, I come from the Operating Engineers Local 150, and we've had Premise for a number of years in Countryside, Illinois, which is where one of our main halls is. And I had a pinched nerve in my neck. This was several years back, and it wasn't resolving. It hurt like nobody's business. I've never experienced pain that bad, and I went to, chiropractor and physical therapy and, et cetera, et cetera. It just wasn't resolving. My fingers were numb. And I went across the parking lot to get cleared for surgery. I was going to have surgery on my neck, right? I've never had surgery in my life.
Right.
And I've always been pretty healthy, or at least I thought I did.
Yeah, you just didn't go to the doctor.
I knew I was healthy because I didn't go to the doctor.
Yeah, nobody could dare to tell you that you weren't.
Right. So I went to the health center doctor, and the nurse practitioner, who's I think she's no longer with us anymore, but she listened to my heart and said that you have a heart murmur. And I, of course, I think my surgery was scheduled for like the next day.
Right?
Yeah.
Sign the paper.
Please sign this paper. I need to get surgery. And she said, your heart murmur sounds kind of funky. And I don't know if you could tell, but I can be pushy, aggressive, and annoying,
mouthy.
Yeah, and I said, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you to sign this, and she wouldn't, and she said, it sounds serious. You need to go see a cardiologist. Like a cardiologist. Like I didn't even know what that was.
I need neck surgery.
Yeah, I need neck surgery, not heart, And so I was like, I'll be right back. And I went down the street to a cardiologist. I forced my way into an appointment, I was like, just clear me. And they came back and said, you have 6 months to live.
Right.
And doctor had aortic stenosis. And you could tell people what that is.
Yeah, so aortic stenosis is kind of a narrowing of that aortic valve. So it's kind of your heart is working a little bit harder to pump blood through.
Yeah, mine
so
was
getting a general anesthetic. Yeah, it would have been hard.
Yeah, right. So they said mine was like 90+% blocked, and I did not have long to live. And I was asymptomatic, and I had no symptoms. I worked out and blah blah blah, and this woman saved my life. And literally saved my life.
How's your neck today?
My neck still hurts. My fingers are still numb. But that seems to be the least of my problems.
Yeah,
but,
now you know.
But she literally saved my life, doctor. And it was because I think that as opposed to,
she made time.
So, she made the time and sat with me and basically said, I'm not clearing you for the surgery. She could have easily just signed the paper and let me go on my way. But that's not the way that you guys practice medicine, at least in our world. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yeah, Yeah, and I think that's a very difficult part of the aspect of family medicine too. So, getting that trust, and sometimes we can work with our patients if it's something small like cholesterol. We'll try out the medication lifestyle management. But sometimes we got to hold our ground, and I think this provider did an excellent job in identifying a problem and holding her guard and executing next steps.
Not getting pushed around by Ken.
It's, sometimes, it could be catastrophic, and, she did a great job in holding her ground. And,
yes, she did. She saved my life. And I think, and I hate to say it, but I also think that it's because of the model that we use, which is she was able to spend the time with me. She wasn't rushed around. There wasn't somebody coming in to draw blood and somebody going, how you feeling today? And then walking back out. I mean, she was there to make sure that that my care was taken care of. It. And so, I sit here today, literally, I send her a card every year. Like she literally saved my life. And I think that this model, but for this model, to be blunt with you, I wouldn't have gone to the doctor. I would have gone to a doc in the box or some, urgent care or whatever, just to get signed off on. And and we're lucky to have that. So,
And I think she was able to advocate for those next steps, getting you to the cardiologist, and
yeah, she did.
So that we had time for that, and that's important too. Is that we're given time for follow up, and I think that's what's so great about the model here at Premise with the value based.
I think you're right, and they still follow up with me, to this day, right? And they manage my medicine and make sure that I'm okay. And I do go see the cardiologist once a year, but but for this system, I literally would not be sitting here. Now there are a decent amount of people that I used to work with that just told me to take my chances.
Yeah, there's some employer side attorneys who are probably not too happy with this practitioner.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Ken. You should ignore it. You're fine.
Yeah, don't. What does she know?
But So it is a different model, and I am a living testament to the fact that this model works.
Right.
So doctor, you think now you'll stay at the Carpenters for a while, or what?
I will. I love the Premise model. I think that's what gravitated me, like us as physicians and providers enjoy it too, because we have time to think about next steps and spend time with that patient. And the only reason I'm here at Carpenters, MOE in Maryville, is the distance became an issue. I was actually planning to move out to the area, and then there was an opening here, and they had asked if I would be, would want to transfer over.
Well, still part of the same umbrella, and just serendipitously, the operators and the Carpenters have joined together under the auspices of the MCL, and I know other unions are going to join, and we're going to start opening doctors' offices around the area as well, now kind of pooling our resources. So we appreciate you taking the time to come on today with us, and quite frankly, giving me a platform to tell my story. I appreciate it. We appreciate everything that you do for the members and their families. I know that we've heard nothing but positive feedback about the way Premise does things, and like you said, having the time to spend with our members and their families is just, it means the world to us.
One last thing that I would throw in is, Ken, if your neck had never started to hurt and you weren't having surgery and you weren't going to see the doctor regularly, you would never have known that this had happened. So folks, there's a lot of people out there. Medical anxiety is like a real thing. People don't go to the doctor.
Yeah,
so
especially our members,
the annual visits are very important.
If you haven't been, go get yourself to the doctor for your family, for just PSA from Ed. Go to the doctor.
At least go once a year.
Yeah.
Construction guys, building trades, cops, everybody that we represent, they're like, I'm fine.
The tough guys, but
tough guys
who use their bodies as their tool. So you got to keep that thing tuned.
Yeah. So what do you think, doctor? Once a year is good enough? Twice a year? How many?
I think those annual visits are very important. And
Start
of course,
there.
if there is some chronic condition, then it could be like every 3 to 6 months, depending on the severity. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll see you next year, or maybe a couple of years. I'm joking. But hey, listen, thank you so much. We really appreciate your spending the time with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we've been talking to Dr. Kavitha Bathala. Premise Health, and we'll be right back right here on the Workers' Mic, 720 WGN.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. If you have been with us, you just heard an interview with Dr. Kavitha Bathala from Premise. She's a medical director out in Lisle. And, I thought that was a great interview, and we thank her for coming on the show.
Yeah, it was. I just think that what these health centers are doing is a wonderful thing, and certainly we're seeing it as a giant value add for the unions.
Right.
And Premise Health, I think, is leading the charge in that direction. That they're owned by a giant teacher's pension.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, union teacher's pension.
Well, they're adding value for our members. They're actually adding value for folks in the studio here today, because if anybody can hear a weird little hiccuping sounding noise every 4 seconds, one of our camera guys, Max Sellis from Da Vinci Street, has had the hiccups for over 24 hours. And I know Max, your mom Sylvia, is an avid listener. So Sylvia, we tried to get him to go to the doctor. This medical director told him to go see a doctor. If you talk to your son today, tell him to go to the doctor, because this kid is just walking around hiccuping.
And it's annoying.
Never seen anything like it.
Yeah, and
Knock
it's
it
annoying.
off, Max.
It makes me want to punch him.
Go see a doctor.
Yeah.
But we digress.
So we do digress. So let's finish up the show. We don't have a lot of time, but I want to finish up with this. We talked about labor at the top, and we talked about it again in the second segment. Why is there no Labor Party in the United States? There's a Labor Party in England. I don't know what they actually do. I know they spell it wrong.
I think maybe maybe the political parties in the United States think that if workers were powerful enough, they wouldn't need politicians anymore.
You think that's why?
I mean,
but why don't the workers themselves rise up and form their own party? Like, how could there's a Green Party and there's a Communist Party and there's a blah 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 party. There's tons of different political parties. I think Green, Libertarians, whatever. I think Green is like the third most popular one. But why isn't there a Workers' Party?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just folks are too easily divided. There's that old joke about the billionaire who sits down at a table with 2 workers, and there's 10 cookies, and the billionaire picks up 9 cookies and then says to one of the workers, "Hey, that other worker stole your cookie."
This is my thought, and tell me what you think about this. If either party, Republicans or Dems, doesn't matter who, just pivot it a little bit and recognize that instead of beating up on workers and trying to just literally give all the money to the rich, the robber barons of the world, and said, we're going to pass laws and we're going to start to make things more equitable in the United States, I'd vote for that party.
Yeah, I think
I really would.
I think, and the data is there. As we go back to all the time, the Workers' Rights Amendment in Illinois passed. People of all political stripes voted for it, because if you tell people, "I'm going to do things that are going to make you more money,"
right,
they're going to like that.
Pretty much,
people will vote for that. It's universally popular, and I don't understand how it hasn't really happened, or how the parties are so focused on other things.
Well, look, you can tell. Over the past X number of years, that the Republicans have basically moved to the right and are relatively anti-worker, right? They're pro-business
at the national level, certainly.
Yeah, for sure. Not every single one. There's no question about it. And you're right. At the national level, it seems to be the thought here. Our members are both Republican and we're not picking a side,
and there are a lot of Democrats that are not doing a thing to help workers as well.
And, Joe Biden has come out, and I give him credit. He passed the bipartisan, meaning it took both parties to get this infrastructure bill, and that's wonderful. But he also, crapped on the
Pooped.
Oops, sorry. Let's start again. Joe Biden, passed the infrastructure bill. It was bipartisan, by the way. It took both parties to do it. It's a giant amount of jobs. But, he also stopped the railroad strike. And that was kind of anathema to, being supportive of unions. So if either party would say, hey, you know what?
This is what we're about.
Yeah, we're about actually making your life better and set a minimum wage, for example. Let's say there was a federal minimum wage of $30 an hour. Well, okay, great. Then don't start a business that's going to cut to the bone so quick that you can only afford to pay $12 an hour. Then don't have that business.
Yeah.
Or universal basic income, or health insurance for all. I mean, things that can literally would change people's lives for the best.
I think politicians, if they spoke more about what I would like to call kitchen table economics,
That's right.
The types of things where it's going to make it easier to pay your bills.
Yeah.
It's going to put more money in your checking account. That's the basic need of workers across the country. And you can stop distracting them with all sorts of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, when you say workers, like, you really just mean Americans,
Right.
because 98% of Americans are workers,
Right.
Right? Nobody's sitting at home,
Right.
Well, some kids are sitting at home in the basement smoking pot and playing video games.
Yeah, a lot of video games, but we're not talking to them.
No.
We'll get go get a
Well,
job.
just so you know, kids, those video game companies like Sega is union busting.
Right.
Imagine that video.
Activision, I think.
Oh, but just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have run out of time, unfortunately. So if the politicians are listening, figure it out, and let's get this right for Americans in the working class. We will be back next week, right here on 720 WGen, the Workers' Mic. See ya.